Okay, so what are we talking about today? Today, we are talking about kindness. So, kindness, it's a nice subject, right? It's something we all know about, right? Something which is all about that. Now, what's this? This here is what's called the QR code. So get your phones up. A slight interaction today on today's sermon. Point your camera at that little square thing. If you need me to move, duck and dodge. If this works, and I hope it does, you should be taken to a Google search page for kindness images. I feel like a pop star. Everybody's pointing their phones at me. It's brilliant. Oh, no. Okay. You got it? Is it working? Great. So what you can see there is I just kind of felt like, we get bombarded online, Instagram, Facebook, with just lots of messages to be kind. Yeah. And you can see they're all nice pastel colors, nice, positive messages, very heartwarming stuff. But it's just a flood of messaging which comes all the time. In fact, even outside this very room, I saw that there's 2 messages of kindness in the hall. So if you go there, if you go upstairs, you'll see one there. Oh, there we are. There is one on the wall here. So we are bombarded. Be kind. Kindness is great. But do we actually think about it? Is it just a word which kind of washes over us? And so today I wanted to have a little bit more of a kind of a look in terms of what. Are we having trouble there, Malcolm? You're not.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm under 45.
Oh my goodness. Malcolm is our technology lead. Oh, there we are. Slugger's tech support is helping us out here. There we are. There we are. Fantastic. Don't worry about it. There is a reason I'm using this as well, so it's not just for this particular bit, but that's cool. Shall we proceed? It's because you've got an iPhone. That's what it is. We're getting there. There we are. It's not just my phone on the line, it's Osaga's. I know, Osaga's reputation is Mr. iPhone. There we are. Carry on. Okay, there we are. Okay, amen. There we are. Good stuff. Okay, so what I wanted to do for us all was to kind of explore what kindness is, what it means, what the Bible says about kindness, because I think we do. A lot of the time, it's one of those words we think, oh yeah, let's be kind, it's a good thing, but we don't necessarily think too much about what it actually means. So what I'd like to do today is kind of go through that and investigate it a bit further and kind of take a bit more in-depth view of it. So, let's go forward and see what the Bible says. I mean, for me, there are 2 key scriptures about this. Galatians 5, 22 to 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And good solid description of the fruit of the Spirit there. So it's a core functionality about who we are. And in Colossians 3, 12 to 13, therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And I think that second verse is really getting a bit more close to the nub of what kindness is getting at. Let me just get myself organized here. So, first of all, kindness isn't easy. With all the stuff we've thrown at us, without explanation, you think kindness is an expectation, and so it should be relatively straightforward. But let me ask you a couple of things about relationships in which kindness is can be a bit more challenging. Let's talk about, first of all, for those of us who are married, kindness in our marriages. It's a difficult thing, isn't it? I was thinking about this subject, what I was going to preach the last couple of weeks, and of course I face challenges myself with this particular issue, as it always happens when you're about to teach on something. The Lord gives you practical examples in your life to help you to understand the subject in a deeper way. Exactly, confession time is coming up. So on the way to church last week, we had a conversation that involved some facts that I felt I perhaps knew better than my wife. The certain facts, and I informed her that I knew better. I didn't do it in a particularly kind way, shall we say. And the rest of the journey was somewhat fraught. We weren't. And I knew that I'd done the wrong thing. When you've done the wrong thing, but you don't want to sort of get into it because the cure is going to be more painful than the disease. So that's how I felt. And I definitely felt like, I wanted to justify myself. And kindness wasn't really in my armory, shall we say. I wasn't thinking, how can I solve this problem with kindness? How can I solve this problem kindly? How can I be kind to my wife? I was like, how can I be right? And for which I apologize. But I'm sure that none of you can relate to my trials of kindness in relationships. So let's take another type of relationship that a lot of us are familiar with: parenting our children. So how many of you would say with your children that kindness comes naturally to them? To the children. Oh, there we are. Good. And was that always the way?
I think sometimes to your detriment, she can be kind.
Okay.
Even when someone's not been kind to her.
Okay, that's a good point. But is that something that was there from birth? Was she kind?
I think it's been in her character. She's always
there we
shared
are.
more.
Okay.
I think thinking about it, it's always been there.
Well, that's amazingly.
It doesn't stay there. It's always in there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think so. I'm going to use my own children here because they're my children. I can use them in a sermon illustration, but they're not here, and I've got control of the recording, so that's fine. But I think a lot of us will recognise that our children will need guidance in being kind. I don't know if you recall your school days, your time in schools. A lot of my interactions with my peers at school did not involve kindness. I can tell you that much, without any problems. And for me, going through school was a struggle because I didn't receive kindness. I was getting bullied a lot, and for me, children being innocent and sweet and gentle and loving, that wasn't my experience. And I think. I look at my own children, and that's something that we have to train them. We have to train them in being kind and considerate. It's not something which comes naturally to them. It's not something which is a given the character. It's something that we have to work hard on, And it's one of the sort of things, be considerate of your brother, be considerate of your sister, be kind. So it's something we want them to be. We want our children to be kind. We want our children to experience kindness to them. Those things make an impact when we see it. And we want our children to express kindness as well. And we are hurt when we don't see our children being treated kindly ourselves. When we see that they're being treated unkindly, it hurts us. So those are things we know, but it's not easy. Kindness isn't a straightforward given. it's not, you have to keep on training. You have to keep on being aware. And then let's just take another example. So we've done marriages, we've done children. Let's talk about our friendships. This one for me is particularly hard. There are people, when they get in touch with me, I feel like I don't want to talk to you right now. There are. And I don't like that about myself. I like, there are some relationships we have, there are some friendships we have that we find difficult, that we want to run away with, that our reaction to them is not characterized by kindness. And yet, those relationships are the ones where we can make the most impact with kindness. I mean, the two examples I've given previously, the family and our wives and our family, those are environments that we're kind of contained within. We're in there for the long term. That's a long haul. We have an incentive to be kind. We have an incentive to keep it running. With our friendships, sometimes that's a bit more of a loose commitment. We can step away. We can lose friendships. We can kind of choose to step away from those things. But with friendships, it's a lot more important that perhaps we're more aware of how to be kind to those people, how to be kind in those relationships. Okay, so we talked about this. Kindness isn't simple. I think we've expressed that as well. So kindness isn't necessarily simple or easy, even in our closest interactions. So let's go back to the scriptures. I think that's a good place to go back to once we've understood the importance and, well, we haven't maybe touched on the importance, but let's talk about we talked about the difficulty of it. Let's talk about how we get that. So the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. So kindness is described here as a fruit of the Spirit. So it's not something which is, yes, we're expected to have it as part of our character. It's something we have, but it's also a fruit of the Spirit. It's also something which is given to us by God, which is quite interesting, really. I mean, for me, I can be quite a self-reliant guy. I can be like, I have the tools, give me the job. I will sort the problem out. But this is saying, guess what? God will give these to you as well as a fruit of the Spirit which is within you. As Christians, we have access to a lot of this stuff, and perhaps we don't even take that for granted. Sometimes we sort of take that for granted or don't realize that. We have these tools, we have these resources that are in us because we're Christians, that are accentuated, which are amplified due to our relationship with God. So, and what does kindness involve? Let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into what the words that we could have associated with kindness would be. So I kind of had a look through this myself. So these are the kind of words which came as an association for me, and also in terms of just looking it up. So we've got, what are the elements of kindness? Generosity, consideration, open-heartedness, mercy, compassion, warmth, concern, friendliness, empathy, and gentleness. So suddenly kindness goes from a fairly simple word that we think we understand to something a lot deeper. All these are fairly active, deep, involved, terms. I mean, how generous am I in my kindness? How considerate am I in my kindness? How open-hearted am I in my kindness? Does my kindness exhibit mercy? Does my kindness exhibit compassion and warmth? Do I have concern, friendliness, empathy, and gentleness? All these things are really part of what we can be when we talk about kindness. It's a deep, deep subject. I just want to touch briefly on empathy here. I think, especially when we talk about kindness, we can be quite shallow when we think we're being kind, we can just be like, oh, that's nice. And we're being more sympathetic than we are being empathetic. So this little link here, I will send this out separately, is a video. I didn't want to show it during the sermon, but it's a video explaining the difference between empathy and sympathy. And it gives a really good explanation about the differences between the two. So I'll send this out again. I'll send out the link afterwards, but it's just, if you want to hop that now, it's a little YouTube video, and it sort of talks about, what does it mean to be empathetic? What does it mean to kind of go alongside somebody? And I think a lot of the core issues of empathy kind of cross over into kindness as well. So what does it mean to be kind? Kindness has an impact. I want to share something with you. So this is a shop in my parents' hometown where I grew up, called Abbots Langley, just not too far away from here. This shop used to be Dobson's. I couldn't find a picture of the actual shop it used to be. What it is there is some combination of a financial services agency and a jeweler, I think there. But it used to be a second-hand junk shop, basically a junk shop. Antiques, furniture, knickknacks, this, that. That sort of the sort of place you go into would be absolutely jam-packed full of old stuff, something which would be absolutely fascinating to kids like me. So I used to go in there, I used to love it. The place was called Dobson's, because it was run by a guy called Dobson, Mr. Dobson. Now, I may have shared this, some of you may know this already, but I am dyspraxic, which means that I'm quite clumsy. So references to bull and china shops definitely had a personal relevance to me. And my parents would always be like, whenever we went into anywhere with lots of china, they were like, just be super aware of yourself, keep your arms in, walk. And my wife still does that to me a little bit because she's aware of my ability to knock into things or back into people, or specifically. But this place, I loved it because it was full of all this kind of interesting secondhand stuff. Yeah, it was great. And I remember one day I was in there, and I think must have been 7 or 8, and I knocked over a glass vase, and it fell over and smashed on the ground. And I was on my own as well. So I kind of went up there, my parents were, and I was absolutely mortified. Yeah, I was devastated. I was like, here I am. I don't have the ability to pay for it. I've got no money. I've smashed something. I've fulfilled all the things my parents fear about me. Here I am, in somebody's shop smashing the stuff. And I remember very clearly, Mr. Dobson came over. He said, he gave me, I think it was a glass ashtray. Gave me a glass ashtray. Said, there's a box. Throw this in there and smash it. I was like, okay. And I threw it in and smashed it. And he gave me another glass thing. And he just gave me 2 or 3 sort of glass objects from the shop and just basically told me, you go ahead and smash them. And it was basically saying, don't worry, it's fine. Here's something. He saw how upset I was. He gave me something to do, and he kind of just made it like a light thing. And that act of kindness really touched me. And I think it's the kindness things which happen in our lives which we remember the most in a lot of occasions. So if we think about our school days, who were the teachers we liked? Who are the teachers we remember? Obviously there were some who were amazing at teaching, but also it was the ones who were kind, who looked after us, who looked for our needs, and took us under their wings, or sort of showed us kindness when we needed to, when we were in times of need. Or the nurses. Do you remember the nurse at your school? I spent quite a lot of time at the nursing, as you can imagine. I fell over quite a lot, sprained my knees, but, kind teachers, kind nurses were definitely the people I remember. And I think, so with our kindness, we can make impact. We can sort of do things which echo down, for our next generation or even the generations afterwards. So how do we express kindness? So we can be open to people's needs, and also how we can address those needs. We can be aware of the situation around us. This is a big one for me. I can be quite busy. I do my day job. I do my photography as well on top of it. There's always something going on. Parenting, family. There's always stuff to capture my attention. But to go that little bit of an extra mile is important, to find out what's going on, to be aware, to sort of reach out and see, and not just wait for things to come to me, but be actively aware of what's happening around me, so I can reach out myself to help those who can receive it. Be ready to have unconditional positive regard. This goes back to the sort of the friendship thing. I think sometimes we look at people's situations and we think, so you got yourself in that mess. And that might be true. You know what? That might be true. But at the same time, we can still be kind to those people. There's a sign out there which says kindness doesn't cost anything. That's right. It doesn't cost anything. But it does, because it costs you that vulnerability and humility to go out and be kind, to show that warmth, to have that positive regard for somebody, regardless of what they might have done to you or other people or whatever's out there. Kindness isn't an excuse. Doesn't give an excuse to people. It gives them support and shows your love to them. And look for the dignity in others. So that kind of goes back to what I was just saying. We look to how we can address people and be nice. It's kind of obvious, but sometimes we forget to be nice as well. We can get so wrapped up in the justice or the mechanics of stuff that sometimes we just forget to be nice. I think a lot of I spent a few years as a head of operations for customer services in a public-facing organization. We were doing gift cards. And gosh, the complaints we used to get. And I'd always be the one at the end of the phone, because I was the manager. All the worst complaints would come to me. Everything, And I'll be honest, our product at the time was not good. And so there were plenty of complaints. And it involved money. So, of course, people get very upset about money. But the thing which helped me do my job best was just being nice. And it's played a major benefit for me now into my current job. I'm doing a much different role. I'm talking to executives and project leaders, but the lessons I learned about being nice in that job really pay benefit for me now. And it's funny, actually, how much impact that kindness and niceness can have just on the people around you without even you realizing it when you've been trained in that way. So, really, that's what I wanted to sort of bring to you today about kindness. It's quite a short message. I think there's a couple of scriptures I wanted to sort of finish off on, just to kind of give a couple of examples. So there's Matthew 5:38-42. So if I just bring it up, bear with me. Okay, Matthew. Matthew 5:38-42. So, which goes, "You have heard it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If somebody strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if somebody wants to sue you, and take your tunic, let him have your cloak as well. If someone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. This is a challenging verse. You know, is this verse saying be stupid? No. Not saying be foolish? No. But it is, the core of this verse is about kindness. About having that heart which reaches out to people and responds to their needs. To their needs. You know, it's not saying, it's not saying, help somebody to have a terrible life. You know, don't extend their problems, but if they have needs, you know, as kindness or response of kindness, we can help people. And also, perhaps the most well-known example would be the parable of the Good Samaritan. You know, there's a guy, he sees a situation, has nothing to do with him. He's a Gentile, right? He's a Samaritan. He's anti the guy there. And he goes out. He spends time, spends money, does follow up, takes care of him, shows kindness. And the core of that is that kind of that kindness that comes from within. And I think I was talking to Malcolm about this on Wednesday, and it's quite funny because you know what, kindness can be used sometimes in other ways as well. And I think the Bible is quite funny. I love the Bible because it doesn't just give us things about all the positives, you know, and all the very super well motivated things. And we were talking about Proverbs 25, which is it's again how kindness can impact people. So if we go to Proverbs 25, Proverbs 25 and verses 21 to 22. If your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. So you know what? Even if you're not feeling it, kindness can have a great impact for you as well. So, I love the Bible. I love when you get a little bit of extra, kind of a little bit of a slightly different angle on stuff. But yeah, so with that, that's the message for today. And it really leads me into what we're doing today, which is hopefully expressing our kindness for the work that's being done in Afghanistan with the Hope Community Centre. This project, yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's close to my own heart because, as again, most of you will know, I went to Afghanistan myself a few years ago, 15 years ago, something like that. Something like that. Long enough ago now. And the work in Afghanistan it's intense. You know, that it's not a safe country. It's not a country which is resourced by the government. It's not a country where, you know, it's pretty much there's politics and war and different sort of factions all fighting. It's a dangerous place. I mean, a few years after I went, it became so dangerous for foreign staff that we had to withdraw all our foreign staff out of Kabul. And, you know, we've worked hard to make sure we can continue supporting this work. And we can see a small sample here of the guys, the men, who are getting that training. And those are all important certificates, which are important over there. So before we go into too much about the work, there's your link to make the donations, to make your donation, and there's your little QR code there as well. So if you want to make a donation right now, you can do that. Use the code on the screen or your address. That'll take you to the Hope Worldwide UK donation page. There's a drop down halfway down the page, which at the moment when you go in it says ODAT, but if you click on that, it'll go down as Afghanistan General on there. Choose that, and you can make your donation directly. I'll, again, send instructions out after the sermon. So if you want to make that contribution at home this afternoon or this evening, have some time to think about it, have some time to discuss it in your families, that's fine, but that's the location to do it. So, there we are. That's good. Okay. So, what are the people that are being helped here? So, at the moment, a lot of the provinces outside Kabul are being controlled by Taliban forces. There's not much opportunity for employment. There's a lot of the people are just working, occupations of rag picking. That is literally going out, picking up rags from the ground and trying to resell it on. That's a job. I can't imagine if you were to say that as a job to somebody, they'd be like, "Oh, you mean in a recycling centre?" No, not like that. It's out in the refuse piles, out in the streets, or small repair shops. So it's very it's just subsistence, day-to-day living. The work that the community centre does in Kabul is to give training in both English and computer skills. And we talked a little bit about how that can impact people's income a couple of weeks ago. It makes a real intense difference. And these are guys who are coming in to support their families as well. So not just supporting themselves. This is to help provide money and support for their families who are back in the provinces. So again, giving that stability, giving that opportunity to move if they need to provide those resources there. This makes a massive impact where else. And this particular part of the work in Afghanistan has been going from 2012. They've done 770 people. That's pretty intense. And right at the moment, there's 160 people enrolled. I know we talked about they come from areas which are still, a lot of them come from areas which are still under Taliban control. So this is a real lifeline for the people. On top of this, because, training 170 people isn't enough, the guys go and do winterization, what's called winterization support for local families. They go out, give blankets, clothing, food, support them, mainly blankets and clothing, to low-income families around the area, and they do a lot of it. It's quite impressive, the work they do there. So let's talk about some facts. So these facts in and of themselves are fairly okay. Let's compare it to the UK. So let's take a few examples here now. Where's the pointer? How do I get the pointer working? Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Okay. Oh, there we are, got it. There we are, okay. That's fairly bad, right? I'm going to be 45 in a month's time, as I've already said. I'd be worried if I was in Afghanistan right now. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mulligan. Literacy rate. In the UK, our literacy rate is 99%. In Afghanistan, it's less than 30%, which, to be honest with you, I find that hard to actually comprehend because it's such a given here. You learn to read and write. You have to learn to read and write. Think about all the things you can't do when you can't read and write. And, we are making, and the stuff we're doing with the Hope Community Centre will have a direct benefit. It will benefit those families because they have the resources to send their kids to school and have the resources to learn to read and write. Infant mortality. In the UK, it's 3.9 deaths per 1,000 births. In Afghanistan, it's 122 deaths per 1,000 births. It's a big difference. Unemployment. Over a third of the people in Afghanistan are unemployed. This whole idea of vocational education. So this is vocational education. So after our kind of end of sort of school age term, it says only 6% of people go into any sort of education at all. In the UK, over 40% to go into university. So we have an incredibly... It doesn't even count. Yeah, exactly. And so it's the whole idea of kind of ploughing back into the country the resources that will help them to build their country, build their families, build their careers. And the last one, for me, only half of schools in Afghanistan have buildings. Wow. And that's now. And I remember driving in Afghanistan to this reservoir, and then we drove past this tent, UNICEF's tent, which was a school. A tent, open-sided, no walls, just a tent. It was snowing. Yeah, it's not like it doesn't snow in Afghanistan. It's not like it's not cold. It's not like it's, half of the schools don't have buildings. It's crazy. But for us, we can help with their education. So in terms of, the actual money, how does your money work? What does it go to? What's it actually used for? What altitude is it? Well, Kabul itself is actually quite high. It's almost a mile up in the air. So the rest of the country is kind of spread over. But yeah, good question. Yeah, flying into Kabul was quite interesting because you got to circle it. It does, absolutely. So I don't know if you can see this clearly. So £100 will take a student for 6 months for training. £1,080 will support 7 staff for a month. 450 is the office rent for a month. 460 is the office rent for a month. 13,000 points is the overall running cost for 6 months. £1,900, that's the rental relation for 60 migrant families. So that's what we were talking about earlier, about giving us food, giving us supplies and clothing. £500 for recreation. It's important that we help them to people to have it. It's not just all intensity. And then £2,000 is the training for the staff of the year. So you can see these are, it still costs money to help people out, even in a country where the expenses are smaller. So anything that you can give, anything you're able to give, will go towards these needs. And so thank you for your support that you'll be giving us, and that you continue to give. So I know this is very important for the work out there. It's Afghanistan is a place which is ebbing from people's awareness. So it's incredibly important for us to kind of show our support and be able to give that as well. I was talking to Mark about Mark Timlin, sorry, apologies. Mark Timlin, who kind of oversees the project from Australia. I was talking to him on WhatsApp the other day. Again, amazing technology. Talking to somebody on the other side of the world, clear as a bell. And at the same time, you're talking about a country which is kind of back 30, 40 years. And he has a very clear vision. He wants to kind of get to a situation where they can continue to grow the program, make it more, continue to sort of support more people, get more sort of health involvement, more mentoring, just make it to grow it. And to grow it with people from the country as well, because we can't parachute in people from other nations, because we have to home grow those people and kind of get those there. It's quite a big task, but there's that vision there to kind of make it grow. And I'm excited to hear about what the plans are and what the vision is. And I think for us to be able to contribute towards that, for us to be able to help do that, to be able to express our own kindness towards those situations is to our benefit as well. It's not just something we do because we should. It's something which helps us as well in our hearts. So, but again, I just want to continue thanking you for your help and your support. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Leon.
Yeah.